arrogant, throwing fits, ripping shit, tearing it, imperative. Then I'm killing this mic no matter where I live. These derelict rappers acting the fool, this embarrassing is flagrant. That's the nature of this entertainment, and we can't even change it. Guilty before arraignment, now the system tainted. But when we speak, they all laugh at us. And y'all wonder why I'm lacking trust. Try to fight a giant with attorneys that can back them up. That's church versus science, both sides start acting up. I'm late on my assignment, hopping up a mile high, climbing, obviously never silent. New alignment, I'm defiant, cannot describe it. Used to describe it as a young graffiti artist. Before the beard, I always got carded. Hit every bar, even though my bar's been the hardest. The scars on my face said I ain't always been the smartest, but I'll show you where my heart is. I said I'll show you where my heart is. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeves, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody will ever see. I can show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, I can show you where
the type of guy that would ride with the breeze. I'm higher than most people, I'm cold and icicle freeze. I'm liking to Mike Tyson, I'm a bison, a beast. I'm hot like Jamaica, like right by the beach. My pops is from a spot where they're fighting for peace. 8 years old, out there watching people fight in the streets. All these sirens only make the violence increase. Yo, we're still not loving police. It's that bright young American, nice, dumb, arrogant. Tight on a mic, but he might need a therapist. Heart full of kerosene, head full of fairy tales. Said that you're my homie, you don't know me, but I know you very well. Roll back on some West Coast shit. This whole track is wetter than your dress code kiss. About to hit the track, running on some retro fit. I guess so lit, I guess so bitch, now let's go.
Show you where my heart's at. See it on my sleeve, even if the beat stops, my soul will not leave. If I never stood tall, nobody.
Welcome to another Tuesday night with Sports Nonsense and Whiskey. Little surprise for you guys. Cameron Parker's in the house.
That's right.
Filling in for Caleb.
It still begins with a C, but yeah, I'm here. Yeah,
it's more positive Nebraska fan than Caleb.
Just a little bit, but maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Depending on how this season's gone, yeah, it's probably safe to say it's probably far more negative than I've been in years past, but I'm just more grateful that we're at 5 wins and we're still about 1 win away from a bowl. So,
I mean, that's pretty good for recent Nebraska history, isn't it?
It is. The important question is like, or the important point to that is, it shows you how important Matt Rule has been to this team in his first year.
I mean, whatever Nebraska games I've watched, I've seen a couple because I feel like if I'm going to talk crap about Nebraska,
my condolences.
I better watch it. They play hard.
Hopefully, they're wins.
I've watched 1 win, 1 loss. Oh, I watched that Minnesota game to start the season too. That was ugly.
Yeah, lovely.
That was ugly. But
that was the that was the game that got away. Literally.
But they played really hard. Like, and that's, to me, like, that starts showing like improvement. When teams are playing hard, you may still fall short. Maybe you don't have the talent, but you play hard, you got decent coaching, like that'll turn around.
And I'm sure we'll talk about the Broncos here. I know that our main topic, is the MVP. We'll talk about that, but I'm sure we'll talk about the Broncos at some point here. But like, I think that's where I think it's really important. Like, coaching is such an essential part of team growth, maybe the most essential part for team growth, aside from stability. And for college football, it's the athletic director. It's the coaching staff. I mean, it's really everything. And in the NFL, it's your ownership. It's your front office staff to your actual coaching staff. And so it just, when it trickles down to that, I mean, and things are humming in the right direction, it's always a good feeling, and as I said, for the Broncos side of things, I mean, like, it has been a really difficult time. Like, there was a one time in a long time after that Jets game where I contemplated, do I really want to do this Broncos content stuff anymore? And, and then they go out and they win against the Packers. They win back-to-back games, if you will, with the Bills and the Chiefs, and, all is right in the world.
You let Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets take you to dark places. That's that. Ooh,
The funniest
I'm sorry,
thing
buddy. If I'd have known that, I would have reached out. Would have given you a care package, something.
the funniest thing is, like, I wasn't the only one. I mean, when I was talking to Sayer when he was in town, like he kind of had those same thoughts, because, like, I mean, it's like it was such a dark place, and then we go out and we beat the Packers, and we go on that 3-game winning streak to currently like what it is now. And as I said earlier, winning cures everything, and especially when you're going streaking.
Absolutely.
The good kind where you're not taking your clothes off streaking.
I mean, either one is okay as long as you don't get caught or you don't mind being cold. One of the two. Been a little while since we've got to catch up, Cam.
Yeah.
How's life treating you?
It's going well. Work's been busy. We're entering a new quarter with the job front. Obviously, the podcast is doing quite well. Both of them. I should say, we just got done recording an episode of 5280, breaking down the game, of course, and any Broncos content related stuff, and mainly has really, it feels like thanks to Michael over there on Twitter, has really kind of become a little bit more popular now with a lot of people, and so people are kind of understanding maybe that there's another Broncos podcast that they can kind of tune into, and so on and so forth. So I'm definitely grateful with the rise of that particular show. It's my baby. That show is my baby. So to kind of see that unfold is been a blessing, and it's humbling. And to get the kind of recognition that we did last week, if you will, was pretty crazy when we were ranked number 2 as far as the week, the number 2 rated podcast for Michael. Was pretty crazy. So he even actually DM'd me today and said, So what's the play? Like, what's the play for the podcast schedule? And I told him, well, 280, and and then we're gonna do mainly on Thursday, and because like this is the rare time where mainly actually gets moved. So if you guys are listening, you guys are fans of mainly Broncos, like there will be no show tomorrow at 7:30 for mainly Broncos, but there will be a show 7:30 on Thursday for mainly Broncos, and that is just simply because apparently I'm such a Christmas nerd. I love Christmas so much that I'm actually going to go see a Christmas play already in the middle of November. So we're going to go see Charlie Brown Christmas live on stage. I don't remember if it's at Ball Arena or if it's at the Paramount. So it's fitting though, because I mean, like whenever we watch Christmas movies, we always have to start with Charlie Brown Christmas and then the Boris Karloff Grinch. And then at that point, like everything just kicks off. We can kind of just choose to watch whatever we want to watch.
It's a little early for that, but
my Christmas tree is up. You want to see it?
Sure.
I'm kidding. Like, but it's definitely up though.
I know folks who have it up already. I have a buddy, like his wife put it up like November 2nd or something. I was in
that same, but I may have been listening to Christmas music too. I'm not gonna
lie. I think my wife does a good job. I think she would put it up if I would I'd let her. What am I gonna say? No.
Happy wife, happy life, right?
Yeah, I would have to be the one that has to go downstairs in the basement and pull it all out. That would probably be like grumble, but I would still do it.
Okay, Griswold.
Hey, you got to play your role. You got to play your role, and I play my role. I'm absolutely very proud of you guys at Manly. You guys have been doing a great job. It is a great podcast, and cheers to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
It's good stuff.
It's definitely been a trend for sure in terms of positivity, and from lately, and it's kind of crazy. Like I mean, if we're being completely honest, like Manly and MHRT, I feel like they got started roughly around the same time. Like the network and Manly, they kind of got started a couple of years ago. So it's like to kind of see both of them grow and then obviously merge together. It speaks volumes to where not just Manly Broncos, but the MHRT network in general, and how much that has grown. And Pinky, you can even attest to that, because you guys weren't a part of the MHRT network, and then you guys recently joined in 2023, right, or the end of 2022, right?
either late 22 or early 23. Yeah.
Yeah, and we recently just added the Orange and Brew podcast, which was another really popular podcast within the Broncos content community or podcast community. And we added a few more shows, of course, the college football show with John Kay. So I mean, like it's buzzing. And of course, the Avalanche just got off the schneid with the Seattle Kraken as well on Monday night, not just the Denver Broncos, and so we got a Avs podcast. Yeah, the MHRT network is just popping.
What is that? The Cluster Puck podcast, and those two do really good work as well. So yeah, we've got lots of great colleagues on the network.
Yeah.
I've made sure to watch every single show just to kind of see how everybody else handles things, and it's good stuff, man.
But my hope at some point is if we can get a Denver Nuggets show on the network. I'm not saying Colorado Rockies though, because I mean, like, look, I love baseball.
Easy.
I love baseball, but I don't want to dedicate a show where I'm talking about a pathetic Rockies team that is probably not going to sniff the World Series until the year 3000 or something.
Oh, dude, like until they sell that team, man, I'm out. Like I've got no interest in the Rockies whatsoever. Like I said, I started rooting for the Braves this last year, and of course, like in typical fashion, they just like get murdered in the playoffs. But for most of the season, they were fun to watch. Yeah. So, yeah, the Rockies no Nuggets. There's got to be enough. I mean, there's got to be enough of us out there that can make that happen. We just have to find a time to get that together. But
it'd be fun. It'd be fun.
Maybe we should talk about that because I wouldn't mind talking. I mean, as the Nuggets are one of the best teams in the NBA, we've got a lot to talk about right now. Right? It's a good time to be a Nuggets fan. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you can see it. I got my maxi.
Okay, and I added a new thing to my my den over here, which was my banner, right? The banner that I got from work. Anybody? So if anybody that wants to know, I do work for KSC. I don't do anything that is sports related. Down there, Cronky also owns Sportsman Channel, Outdoor Channel, and stuff like that. So I do a lot of some stuff with Sportsman's Channel, which of course is the hunting channel. So that's about the extent of it. But yeah, I do work for KSC.
Yeah, which I mean that's awesome. It keeps you close by all the sports as well since you're there. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you get a couple kickbacks every once in a while of going to a couple games here and there.
I was fortunate enough to go to the Pelicans game.
Where
that was an insane game. My dad and I went to that, and the seats were, okay. But I guess when you go to Pepsi Center or Ball, right? Like anybody wants, it's Pepsi Center, right? I mean, I know I know people will say Ball Arena or, it's the whole Mile High Stadium argument, right? But, yeah, I mean, as far as that, I mean, you have about 20,000 fans. You're not like in a football stadium with 50, 60, 70,000 fans, where you're sitting at like the tippy top and you need binoculars to, look down at the stadium. No, like if you, depending on where you're sitting, it's okay. But like when you're in Ball Arena, and you're on the tippy top, it's okay. Like you can get a rather.
It's not bad up there. I've sat up there multiple times for concerts and games, and even the top is okay. There's a little bit more rowdy up top. You got to be.
Depends on where you are.
There's some more rowdy folks up there for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Caleb did send me a list of things. I'll give a shout out to Caleb. He couldn't make it. He felt really bad. He's got some family things he's taking care of, and but he was like sent me a long list of things. So I'll get through some of that list. Some of these actually I'd love to get your opinion, so I'm glad you're here. The first one he wanted to talk about was the Michigan scandal. Have you been? I'm assuming you like college football, so I'm assuming you've kept up with that.
Not to the certain extent of it, a little bit, but I do know that the Michigan stuff is, I'm not going to say that, the sign stealing stuff, doesn't happen, because I mean, like we're talking about, I mean, the sign stealing stuff has happened all across sports, right? I mean, like
Right.
Particularly, it's happened more often than not. It's happened in baseball. I mean, the Houston Astros is a prime example of that, as far as sign stealing. And we know that the backlash and the support, or lack thereof, I should say, for a team like the Houston Astros, in terms of that. And I think what's interesting though is, even if they didn't necessarily rule that there was not necessarily evidence, but yet they went through and they suspended Harbaugh, for the remainder of the season, kind of given the fact that they really didn't say that there was definitive evidence given the whole situation, right? But the fact is like they are so petty enough that on a flight, when Michigan's on a flight, they suspend him, like for those 3 games. Like I definitely understand both sides of it. Like, again, like I'm not trying to say, like, because again, like you're innocent until proven guilty, right? And like maybe it's possible that like there really is no evidence, right? But like, why would you suspend a coach or suspend someone or a team for X amount of games, like if there's truly no evidence? Like, I would rather wait until all that evidence is out than kind of, to use this phraseology, like make someone an example of, right? Which kind of what it feels like with Jim Harbaugh. Like, you're making him an example, whether it's true or not. The whole process of how it went down is a bit shady to me.
Yeah, so 3 games seems like a light, a kind of a smack on the wrist for a true cheating scandal. I don't know how much real. I think it was the Big Ten that did it, not the NCAA. The NCAA looks like they're not going to do anything because I don't know how much true power they have anymore. But to me, it's like did he do anything?
But we don't know that answer.
I mean, and they went to games. Now, if he's got spies in their practices, to me, that's a whole different thing. All he's at is he's paid people to go to games and pay attention to their signs. Anybody could do that. And again, if you're relying on cardboard and pictures on cardboard versus audio headsets where you could just relay the play into the quarterback like they do in the NFL.
Right.
Like, I don't update your technology. Like, let's just make that a rule, and that's not even an issue anymore.
Well, there's the other side of it that's like, say they did know about it, right? They did know about the Connor Stallions and stuff, which, by the way, is hilarious to see some of the funny tweets and stuff out of the response to that. But I think here's the deal: is like, if it's true, and like just I should say just in general, like say something comes out of it, it's almost like the Joe Paterno argument, like with the whole Sandusky situation. Like, you can't be so naive, and I mean this from Jim Harbaugh's perspective. Like, you can't be so naive in the sense of like you actually don't know anything about it. Like, there's the side of so like there's also a side of there's a side story to this, which is Blake Corum, where like there was something like like an agency or something like there was something that is like he's associated with, and he's actually associated with the Stallions, right? And Connor Stallion, of course, is the one that was caught. And Corum like came out like last week or something, and he basically said, no, I really don't have any recollection, of I don't know if he said like the Stallions, or just recollection of anything, that is going on in terms of the sign stealing. Like, bro, like on that front, it's like, how do you not know like that something's going on? If you're like associated with the guy who's been like accused, if you will, of sign stealing, and oh, by the way, Michigan tried to hide it, but they went out and actually suspended the guy and actually kicked him off the program, if you will, to, right, like not to be part of Michigan anymore. Right. Like, so it's just like, by that, that's the other twist of this that I'm like almost like, well, maybe they did do it because if you are suspending him, and if you are, having him not be a part of your program again, is that not admitting guilt? Like truly, like is that not admitting guilt that you're like, oh, he's no longer with our program. We've clearly cut ties with him. By that token, you would almost think, maybe and maybe that's what the Big Ten was going off of, right? Like maybe that's what the Big Ten was going off of is like if they went out and actually did this and severed the ties and so on and so forth, like by doing that, I guess maybe that's the evidence they needed in terms of the suspension. But what's funny is like, wouldn't it have been a more severe penalty, like a severe suspension? Because Harbaugh was suspended in the early part of the season.
Right.
So like he was suspended in the early part of the season. So like if you wanted to make him an example of like suspend him not just for the 3 games of this season, but 3 games the following season. So like do like 6 games or something, like do the end of this season and the beginning part of next season or something, like make him like full on example if you wanted to go that route or whatever.
Yeah. I just don't think they wanted to bring down the hammer like that. No, again, I still don't even really know if I really don't think it's bad. Like I'm sorry, they're at a game. Like anybody could do that. Like you technically could just like pull game film if you can get the right angle of the cardboard and then try to match up with what plays are run on the field. Like it's not that hard in today's day and age with the technology that we have.
Right. So. But I mean, it's like, but I'm not disagreeing though to what you're saying, but it's like, not to sound like an old guy yelling at a crowd, but like if there's rules though, and you have to abide by those rules, I mean, that's the unfortunate part. Like I agree with you in the sense of like, because we said at the top, like sign stealing, it happens not just possibly like in the major leagues, but it happens probably in maybe any sport, right? I mean, it might be a little bit hard to do a sign stealing in terms of the NHL because it's so fast. Right. But like possibly the NBA, maybe the NFL to a certain extent. I mean, Sean Payton said himself, right? Like there was a picture of him on the sideline, and it like was zoomed in on his play card, and someone asked him about it, about possibly like looking at his plays, and he's like, I really don't care. He's like, I really don't care. But like, so, I mean, I definitely get the logical side of it and the logistics of it. And like, so, but I don't know. It's just, again, though, it's like, if those rules are meant to be there, I wouldn't want to break it.
That's your moral compass, Cam.
That's your moral compass. It's the moral compass talking.
And that's a good thing to have. Harbaugh has had he's done some other things that shows he doesn't quite have the moral compass.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's see. Trying to do this. All right. So let's before we get into a couple of these other topics Caleb's laid out here, let's talk about that Broncos game, which I know you just spent an hour talking through.
I could talk about it for more hours. I don't care.
So I have an issue with Broncos country.
Oh.
And I have an issue with some negativity that's out there. I don't know what people want because
isn't that also like a moral compass thing? We really don't know what we want.
That might be it. I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, there are so many people mad that we won that game. And there's so many people that are like, yeah, we won that game, but our offense was trash. Would you have preferred, like, the last 4 seasons, we have found ways to lose that game. Mm-hmm. And we have found ways to lose that game in epic fashion. Mm-hmm. Like getting down the field and running, doing 3 straight kneel downs and then rushing the kicker out there and the kicker misses it, right? That is a normal, like, I laughed. Like, I was just like, that's what we've come accustomed to. And then we got a miracle of, somehow Buffalo, somebody didn't know they needed to get off the field and stayed on the field and gave us another free 5 and a kick, which we did end up making that second time. Why do you think there's so many folks in Broncos country that are mad about a win at this point? I mean, do we not want our team to win anymore?
That's kind of the divide, I think, just overall with just this team in general. They're trying to figure out what side of the aisle they're on. Because, I mean, like, and it's even started from the tanking crowd to, the winning crowd to it's okay to win games and it's okay to lose games, right? Like, so, like, there's 3 ways to look at it, right? Like, you always want to win every single game, or it's okay to win. And, I'm fine, losing games because it does, help the draft pick, but I'm even fine winning a game like the Buffalo Bills because we shouldn't be winning a game like that. Right. But then there's the tanking crowd, which is, no, let's just lose the rest of our games. Let's use the NBA tactic, which is stupid enough. Like, let's tank the rest of our games and, and nail a draft pick and throw a dart and hope it turns our program around, which, I mean, that's cool and all, but like the tanking stuff doesn't work all that often, truly, in the NFL. And like, I mean, look at the Detroit Lions. They tried it for years. If you want to say that they tanked it, maybe they did, but like they had like numerous first round picks on their team and on their roster, and they never amounted to squat. On that team, even with Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson and all those tremendous talents that they had there, they never amounted to anything there. And so, I mean, like my summary of all of it is, what do you want? Like, isn't at the end of the day, like us being Broncos fans and being a part of Broncos country, at the end of the day, isn't it what we absolutely want? And that is for this team to be successful, right? Like, isn't what we want this team to be successful? So by that token, us beating the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills in back-to-back weeks, something that no one even before the season predicted, I would almost guarantee that. And if you did, you were a true Kool-Aid fan, by the way, if you do. But like, if you predicted that, I mean, kudos to you. But like, if beating the Buffalo Bills is a massive, massive achievement for not just this team, but the culture of the team that's going to be built by Sean Payton. And you have to buy into that. And if you're not going to buy into that, then I hate to throw this out here, but you're a fake fan. If you actually believe that the Broncos should have lost to Buffalo, like, you're truly a fake fan, because if you're not appreciating the fact that, they beat a team like this, they shot themselves in the foot. The Bills shot themselves in the foot. Should not have won that game, and they didn't win that game, right? And like, so like this idea of like they should have lost is like, it drives me up a wall, because it's like, what do you want?
And I had gotten to a place, and I think maybe we were doing it at the same time, right around that Jets game, because I keep watching the Jets every week after that, and I go, how did we lose to this team? How did we lose to this team?
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, I had gotten to the acceptance phase. If we won, if we lost, I just accepted it.
Yeah, it kind of is what it is.
I wasn't going to let my blood pressure raise too much, or, be pissed off for an hour after the game because of it, right? Which, back in the Peyton Manning's days, when we lost a game, like, I was not good to be around for at least a couple hours, if not the next 3 days, maybe. So that's where I'm just like, you should always want your team to win. Just, that's what it's all about. Now, I get it. Draft picks. I'm a draft guy. I go to the draft. I love, I would love for the Broncos to have a top 5, top 10 pick. But, we're not earning that pick. We're playing pretty good football. It's not perfect by any means.
No.
But we're playing some good team football. So,
Well, and I think that, and it goes back to what we were saying, is like, if you can just strip it back, like peel it all back, like it's important to understand that what we're seeing from this team from an identity side of things, like this team is finally embracing an identity. Like, yeah, there may be times like it may not look pretty and it may not look, clean by any means, but they're winning football games, and they're winning games that they never should have, and that is a big credit to Sean Payton. And if that Buffalo Bills game was any indication for any of the haters that called him a third choice, fourth choice, or a coach that they didn't even want, if that was any indication that you should not, or that you should trade a first round pick for a head coach, that is the game that is a big identifier for why you should trade a first round pick for a head coach. One, it adds one of the biggest foundations for your program. And two, it helps coach and mold your team exactly the way that it needs to be. Putting them in formations, putting them in the exacto situations. The Broncos had 2 running to the clock situations against Buffalo. That is coaching, and that is Sean Payton. That is hiring Mike Westhoff. That's Sean Payton. Like, that is laying a foundation for a successful football team and creating a physical, established rushing attack where it does get better over the course of the game. Javonte Williams and that offensive line got better as the game wore on against a stout Bills defensive line, which, you want to give them credit for playing really well in the game. But like, the Broncos offensive line held their own for the most part of that game and finished the game off. And you could just tell Williams was just that close to breaking one off. But that goes to coaching, and it goes back to even the beginning part of this year where, Mike McFlinchie has been an issue at times just overall with his false starts, but in the running game, he's not an issue, and so like when they adapt and they mold itself into that identity, they will be a tough team to beat, because we know, like, as the season wears down, I don't know if they'll be a playoff team, and we'll talk about that probably even in this show. Like, I don't know if they'll be a playoff team officially this year, but we know as the season winds itself down and at the end of the year, we know the better running football team always has a better chance to go to the playoffs. And the Broncos very clearly want to be that rushing attack and that rushing identity as the season is ending.
There's 2 things that travel with you: a good run game and a good defense.
Mm-hmm.
Those 2 things travel. Let me get your take on this, Cam. Talking about Sean Payton, and I think I like Sean Payton. I thought he did some great things in New Orleans. Some folks count Bountygate against him. I don't. I understand. I remember being in a high school.
Why they would, but yeah.
I was in a high school locker room, and we had, not everybody had really money, but we, you got kudos for knocking someone out. Like, that was part of, the game at that time. Now, times have changed, but that was a big part of that. And Caleb, I wouldn't say is a Sean Payton hater. He does have some doubt, and he holds one of the things that he kind of is putting out there is, has the game passed him by? And what are your thoughts on, is the game been changing enough that he's not quite with it like he used to be?
I would disagree with that, because, if the game had passed him by, seriously, and I actually mean this, if the game had passed him by, we would have lost to Kansas City and Buffalo. Serious, like, we would have lost to Buffalo and Kansas City, meaning Andy Reid would have outcoached him. Andy Reid would have outcoached him. A coach that we want to hype all amount of praise for. And, kudos to Andy Reid. He's doing an amazing job with Kansas City. But if Sean Payton had passed him by, he would have lost to the Chiefs. He would have, because he took the year off. And if the game had passed him by, he's not adjusting on the fly, or he's not putting the special teams unit in an advantageous situation, or should I say smartly, which has also been criticized, weirdly enough, on the timeline, but like smartly running the clock at the end of the fourth quarter, so the Bills don't end up with the ball, right? Like if the game was passing you by, you're not making that decision. You're actually wasting your timeout, calling your last timeout on fourth down, and giving the ball back to the Bills with like 30 seconds, which, I mean, if I'm not wrong, do we all remember the Bills and Chiefs playoff game? Like where the Chiefs scored in 10 seconds and the Bills scored in 20 seconds or 30 seconds or whatever. The last minute of that game was bananas. So
Right.
like giving Josh Allen and that offense just any sort of life was the wrong decision.
A guy with a cannon arm like that,
Yeah.
like he could throw that ball 40, 50 yards, no problem.
So
just like that.
So the point is that if the game had passed him by, you would lose games, to the Chiefs and the Bills. And I would say that if his rebuttal is the games that they should have won, which is the Raiders and the Commanders, the Jets, that's fine. But that's also the beginning point of the season when you're laying your foundation, you're laying your structure, you're laying what needs to happen with your team. And like, so your team is not exactly going to be gelling from day one, and expecting that's too needy. Like that is seriously too needy to expect this team to hit the ground running.
A lot of Broncos country was again hyped up and ready, and we wanted that win. We want to win, and we want to win so bad that we wanted it right away. Where things weren't as clean, especially on the defensive side. We were missing some guys on the defensive side that really hurt some of the things we were doing. So
I think it'll be interesting as the years and years progress. To Caleb's point, is what he does in year 2, in year 3, in year 4. Like as his team is and the foundation is being molded, how is that being structured? Because we know with Russ, he may not be the long-term answer, but he's also making it difficult for the Broncos to possibly move on from him because you're finally able to see that efficient Russ, the efficient player that he needs to be with the offense that Sean Payton wants to run. But we talked about it on 5280 tonight, is like he's entering a very weird phase. Like he's entering a weird phase to where the offense they're running is also replaceable. You could put any quarterback in that system and it would be successful. And who would that be? Would that be a quarterback that they draft in the first round that you put into that offense and you're very comfortable with running? Like, is it a Michael Penix? If that's going to be a first round quarterback, are you putting your trust in a rookie quarterback in that kind of situation?
Bo Nix.
Yeah, Bo Nix.
JJ McCarthy.
I think JJ McCarthy, guys like Cam Ward, those would be two guys where you could possibly sit him, for about a year and get out of that Russell contract in 2025. But let's also not forget that we have the richest owners in sports, and that contract couldn't necessarily mean squat to them. Russell could throw for 34-9 this year, and Sean Payton may just come into the room and say, "Hey, Russ, we loved exactly what you did this year, but we have some other future plans that we just don't think that you're going to be a part of." And they go out and they get their quarterback. But there's also the other side of it that we touched on, which is if you do take a quarterback, and this is meaning like with Russ on the roster, is that you have to have the actual end in sight that he is going to restructure that deal, that he is going to restructure, not if he has to restructure that contract.
If I'm not mistaken, would they have to get that done before the league year?
Mm-hmm.
So his 24-25 doesn't become guaranteed?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think the point that I made that I think many Bronco fans forgot, or it's not really ingrained in their head just yet. And I know it wasn't a Russell Wilson contract, but I think people forget that George Payton, when Teddy Bridgewater was traded to Denver, or he's traded, I think he had a massive deal, like a massive starting quarterback deal. I think it was 30 a year. It was like 30 a year with the Panthers. like 3 years, 90 million or something, like starting quarterback money or whatever. Like, and then when he gets traded, to the Broncos, George Paton strips that contract in like 3 quarters to make it a 1-year deal. So that you can actually get out of that deal. And we know the Broncos got out of that deal after that first year. So I'm not saying that he's going to do that with Russell Wilson, but I'm just saying it's not out of the realm of possibility that George Paton, the guy that many Broncos fans, and we don't need to talk about the George Paton stuff, right now, but like many people want to leave the Broncos maybe after this year, but like, let's not rule out the fact that George Paton has done that before, where he's restructured a quarterback's deal, a rather large quarterback's deal.
It's a case in point. I think, and this is, Sean Payton rebuilding the Broncos and being competitive was something Caleb was looking at is, can he do both? And I just think when you've got a good coach, they're able to like scheme and hide deficiencies, and they're able to do things that, some of these younger guys just don't have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is Brandon Staley a really bad coach? Maybe not. He hasn't had the experience, and maybe doesn't have.
I do think he's a bad coach, but it's a fair point.
Maybe he doesn't have people on his roster he can trust. That they don't have the experience, whereas we have, Joe Lombardi's the OC. He's been an OC for a long time. In New Orleans, he was the OC in Chargers last year. We've got Westhoff, who's been around forever. Vance Joseph has done the DC job multiple times and was a head coach. Like, there's more experience on this type of team, coach-wise, than on other teams that you're like, oh, that guy's horrible, but well, maybe it's just like he doesn't have everything around him and he doesn't have the experience.
Yeah. And it's a fair point. I personally think Staley is a pretty bad coach, but it's a fair point in the sense of like, maybe they don't have the players, maybe they don't have the roster, but like, by that same token, with the amount of times that he's been there with Herbert, you would think that they would build a team around him.
Some of what I've watched from Staley makes some tough decisions that don't help him any, but Herbert finds a way to choke, bro. And
it's hard to explain.
We see the talent, we see the arm, we see everything out there, and he's a good-looking dude, nice guy from reports, but like he finds a way to just choke.
Yeah, it's a hard.
And nobody's calling him out on it.
But one thing is for sure, you maybe put him in the right offense, he could be an MVP candidate.
He could. He absolutely could. Yeah. It's amazing how if you put people in certain circumstances, they can flourish. He's probably not had that yet, which also goes to the whole when Colin Cowherd mentions it a lot. Today's NFL, if you have an elite quarterback, you hire an offensive coach. You don't hire a defensive coach. You hire an offensive coach, so then they can be tied together and they can, work together. You hire a competent DC, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the key to things these days, which seems to be the pattern. A lot of the defensive coaches don't do very well.
Yeah.
So let's see what else did he got here. I guess that kind of leads into the second thing that Caleb had, coaching hot seats. Staley being on there. I think he's earned that hot seat.
One is the team we played last night.
Right. Sean McDermott. I thought I may not agree with everything Gage says, but when he said that McDermott's the John Fox of the NFL right now, I was like, that's a damn good comparison, Gage. Cheers to you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, but just from the simple standpoint of like maybe not the schematic side, or maybe he does things a little bit different, but just from the overall perspective and possibly with what the Bills would want to do long term. That's why I mentioned Bill Belichick, because like who knows what Bill Belichick, in terms of a coach that's going to be on the hot seat, but like who knows what Bill Belichick wants to do, right? And so like he could do the nastiest thing. He could go in division to the Bills, coach Josh Allen, and make their lives hell in that division, you know? And so, I mean, so I just, so if that, and so the idea is like, if you're the Bills and you do feel like you have and by that token, it's like, again, like that's why the Bills are in such a weird spot. And like, and we said on the show is like, if people think that Ken Dorsey is absolving this thing with McDermott, they're fooling themselves. I mean, and if there was anybody that they should have fired, it was that special teams coordinator, you know, the one that had the blunder, you know, in the game.
Well, you could talk about the blunder, but then you can also talk about multiple times he kicked the ball to Marvin Mims and allowed Mims to get great field position. I mean, the Broncos' average starting position was like the 42-yard line.
42-yard line. Yeah. And so Sean McDermott is absolutely on the hot seat. And so there are some definite, coaches that,
Bill Belichick is on the hot seat, obviously.
Yeah.
That's it. I had not thought about him going to the Bills. I think that's an interesting idea. And I like it if you don't allow him to buy the groceries anymore.
I was gonna say you don't know the intentions though. I mean, because like the Patriots could also do the funniest thing, and that is, lose the rest of their games, which is highly possible. They end up with a top 3 pick. You get the chance at Drake May. They keep Bill Belichick, and now you've given Bill Belichick and that young quarterback, the possibility with a offensive coordinator that Drake May would want to work for or want to work with.
Well, and I just think Bill Belichick at this point was able for many years. He had a quarterback that could hide a lot of the deficiencies the team had, as well as be able to create superstars out of Wes Welker and Julian Edelman. And those dudes are hard workers and they put in a lot of the work, but you could say they probably weren't the greatest of athletes or superstars coming right out of college, right? Mm-hmm. They were guys that had to be grown. Can Bill Belichick really create that anymore? Does he have the ability to do that? I mean, every year, I'm probably not. I know there's the draft program, BPA. They'll probably be coming back once the draft is closer, I assume.
Yeah.
Those guys probably get more deep into the players than I get into. But I will say, like, every time I watch a Patriots draft, I'm like, I only know like 2 or 3 of those dudes. Yeah. And I feel like I know quite a few. And it baffles me every year. So I'll take Bill Belichick coaching anywhere if he doesn't have to buy the groceries anymore. Yeah,
the funniest thing is, now I understand, and this is an important coaching PSA. But the coaching deals and the coaching contracts that get handed out, this is important for people to remember, is that it does not affect the salary cap. It does not affect the salary cap. So it's important to throw that PSA in there. Why do I say that? The Raiders could ask Bill Belichick to be their coach. But by that same token, it's like, so it doesn't affect the salary cap, but financially, it may not affect the salary cap, but financially, can you still make it work? Because you're paying Gruden, you're paying McDaniels. Ideally, in terms of the best financial security for yourself, would be if Antonio Pierce works out long term, it would be to keep him. Like, it would be to keep him and actually do what they should have done with Rich Bisaccia, which was actually, keep him. And here I am. I'm praising the Raiders or giving them an idea of actually what they should do. But I mean, I just can't see Belichick in Vegas, and I actually can't even see Belichick in the Chargers because, let's not forget that Dean Spanos, they've had a lawsuit going on like the last couple of years, like the family lawsuit, by the way, like a family lawsuit, and it seems like. And the Spanos family is also poor. If they weren't poor, which go figure, they're in California, but like if they were poor, like or if they're not poor, they would have hired Sean Payton, which is apparently one of the teams that Sean wanted to coach, And so so I don't necessarily see him in, LA. It could happen, because like Justin Herbert could attract some of the most elite coaches, to want to, coach him, but they could easily hire, they could easily do the most wild thing and the financially stable thing and promote Kellen Moore, who was supposed to be a head coaching candidate this last cycle. So I think it's going to be interesting, just overall the stuff to follow. Obviously, Matt Eberflus is another one. That's like the
Eberflus is probably gone.
Not probably.
Todd Bowles.
Yeah.
Todd Bowles is probably on the hot seat.
I don't know about Ron Rivera anymore.
Ron Rivera, I think Ron Rivera is gone because I think the new owner is going to want his guys in place.
Yeah, I don't know. It just depends on the ownership's intentions, which is so funny. Which is so funny that it's Josh Harris, the guy who came in second place for the Broncos ownership, by the way.
Right. Who would be the Broncos owner if it wasn't for the Walmart family being interested? Mm-hmm. Arthur Smith for the Falcons.
I think the Falcons are. Excuse me. If they can nail a offensive-minded coach, and I mean, it's Arthur Smith's credit, he was kind of an offensive-minded coach, but actually nailing an offensive-minded coach, like a brilliant offensive mind, if they can do that, then possibly the Falcons may hit something, because it's mind-boggling what you're seeing with Bijan Robinson. Like when you're hearing comments from Arthur Smith saying that actually when Bijan doesn't touch the ball, he's effective. What? So the idea is for you to get your best players involved. The idea is to get your best players. Kyle Pitts is a non-factor, but no, because Arthur Smith has so much of an affinity for Jonnu Smith. Let's give him.
Jonnu Smith is the man.
Yeah, let's give Jonnu Smith, a guy I'm so familiar with, right? Arthur Smith. Let's give him the touches, not the guy who's 23 years old, an exceptional athlete, one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen come out of college. Let's not give him the ball. Let's actually, give it to the guy who's been a fluke almost his entire year, signs with the Patriots for a massive contract, was good for me, but he's 85 years old now. Let's give it to him.
So that's so true. Yeah, Arthur Smith is mind-boggling that BJ and I've been mad at him all season. As soon as the Falcons get in the red zone, they immediately pulled Bijan and put in Tyson Algier, which I'm like, did you not draft Bijan 7th overall?
Algier's okay, but he's not Bijan.
I don't if you're at the 17-yard line and you give Bijan the ball, he can score. If you get him to the 9-yard line and then give him the ball, he can score. He can score from anywhere on the field. It makes no sense to not have him in the game, and they do that all the time. It's very frustrating. Let's see, hot seat. Oh, Aaron Rodgers. Is it me, or are they really trying to pop? Are they trying to really put out that false hope to Jets fans? I'm sorry, but I can't see a guy 2.5 months after Achilles surgery going on into a game, running away from 300-pound linemen, where his O-line can't block anybody to begin with, and him having to throw darts and dimes and run away from people after 3 months of an Achilles surgery.
The funniest thing,
I don't see that happen.
The funniest thing is with the Jets is it could be so bad because Zach Wilson is so bad, but it could be so bad that they're almost forced to play Aaron because of the way the season has gone, which is not smart health-wise. It's not smart. I mean, I don't know what health regimen that wacko, in the mental head Aaron Rodgers is doing and what he takes, and the 12 the 12-day cleanse or whatever he takes or whatever to heal his Achilles or whatever, if it works, send me that 12-day cleanse so that I can get better. Like if I'm dealing with like hip injuries or knee injuries or, something, just so like from like my own benefit, just like, because if he's recovering from an Achilles injury, like that is something that like you're not supposed to play until next year.
Right.
And like we all saw the video, like Aaron, we're not dumb. We saw the video. We saw that Achilles rupture. Like, so, I mean, like, I don't like but the Jets, this is also proof though of how incompetent Woody Johnson and the Jets really are, because we compared the Minnesota Vikings on 5280 recently to the Jets, and the Vikings honestly did what the Jets should have done, which is invest in the backup quarterback position, going out and getting Joshua Dobbs. And because of that, they brought their team back to stability. And so much so that if that trend continues, like you're entering a conversation of should the Vikings actually, I don't know, move on from Kirk Cousins, which is a crazy thought, but like move on from Kirk and then save some money
in a tough spot.
Keep Dobbs.
They're going to be in a tough spot because they're going to be in a situation where Dobbs isn't their future, but could you have him play for a year? Right? He's no, this
you don't know.
This kind of reminds me of like Minnesota Case Keenum. Like Dobbs played well in Arizona too. Actually, a couple weeks ago, my buddy Andy and I, we went down to Arizona and watched the Arizona Cardinals play the Baltimore Ravens for our football trip this year. And Dobbs was okay, but he missed a couple throws. He threw a couple picks. He still kept the game, kept him in it, kept him there. I could tell like he's not the long-term answer for anybody, but could he play a season at quarterback while you figure out what to do next? Absolutely. Would I rather pay Dobbs $15 to $20 million a year for a year, or pay Cousins another $40 for 3 years? Those are options you gotta weigh out for sure. But yeah, he's giving me more like Case Keenum vibes. Nick Foles. Well, Nick Foles only had a playoff run. His regular season was awful. He's just giving me those vibes. He's the game is clicking for him right now. He's playing well. He's using his legs. He's playing great. He's a great story. But like that, like he's gonna run out of thunder eventually. It's gonna happen. It's like Geno Smith. Geno Smith turned back into a pumpkin this year. Oh,
don't tell Seahawks fans that, because they're probably regretting the Russell trade now.
I don't know if they regret that because of all the talent they built with those picks, because they figured out how to draft again.
I'm joking, obviously. But yeah.
5 years of bad drafting led them to that, and then of course, then they figured out how to draft again when they had all their picks.
Go figure.
So, let's see, what else did we got here? Yeah, the Jets are not going to be anywhere near the playoffs. It won't make any sense for Aaron Rodgers to play, and it is going to take one more bad Zach Wilson game, and we're going to see Trevor Siemian playing.
But I don't know. Like Robert Saleh is such a weird case right now.
You could tell in every Robert Saleh press conference, he is not making that decision to play Zach Wilson.
I mean, maybe we're not there though. So it's like, they're being inept right now. Like they're truly being inept, and it's just really bad with how that whole thing is working. I'll have to reach out to my Jets guy who we had on for Jets Week and just kind of get a pulse of what's going on down there.
I've got a Jets fan right across that works with me, and he's just like, bro. And I was like, hey, you guys hired Nathaniel Hackett. There's no creativity. There's nobody moving. I was like, you've got a great receiver in Garrett Wilson, and they can hardly scheme ways to get him open and available on a regular basis. You've got Breece Hall, and somehow you can't get him going. Like, it's bad, man. It's going to get bad. It's going to be bad.
I could see a surprise. I could see a surprise hot seat candidate before we go into our next topic. and it could surprise a lot of people. I do not think it's going to happen. But the way the season has gone, I could see it. But it's a knee-jerk reaction after hiring him for the first year, and that would be Frank Reich.
So Tepper has had this team for 6 years now, I think 6 or 7. I could see him making a decision like that.
Because funny enough, Evero's been in. I mean,
well,
right?
they've got so many injuries that they're dealing with in the secondary and the D line, and Burns has been out half the year, and like they're dealing with a lot. And then their offense has been bad enough that it doesn't give, like, their defense is on the field all the time, so like that wears you down. I don't know. All I know is like they should have. I think that's actually something that could happen, Cam. I think you've definitely got some thoughts there that might actually work out, because I think he's desperate to win. But at the end of the day, man, from the day they made that trade to get the number 1 pick, I don't care. I'm not making the deal if I have to trade you DJ Moore. I'm not.
Yeah, it's just such an interesting one because, like, obviously your team is set on Bryce Young, and so it's going to, and so it's like you need to.
Well,
yeah.
The rumor is the coaching staff wanted CJ, and the owner is the one that stepped in and wanted Bryce.
It's funny because now this is 2 straight times that Reich has wanted a quarterback that he can't get.
Right. And that's where, just at the end of the day, like, I would have told the Chicago Bears, like, there's not many teams looking to come up to 1. We do. If you want 1, we'll trade you picks for him. I'm not giving you DJ Moore, because whatever quarterback I get, I need him to have a wide receiver to throw to. I'm not giving you DJ Moore. And if they say, nope, we want DJ, I hang up the phone and I wait till draft day. And I have them call me again.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, they would still be, they're just as bad now with Bryce Young. They would have been just as bad if they just, drafted an O-lineman at 9 and had Andy Dalton play all year.
Yeah. It's going to be really interesting, because then also, if you do fire Reich, you're going to be hand-capped a little bit with draft capital. So...
And they have, the whole thing, they have no, Thielen is consistently where he needs to be, but he's not always open.
He's a number 2, a low end number 2, high end number 3 right now.
Right. And they have him as their number 1. So poor Panthers fans. I'm sorry for you guys. Let's see. Okay. This one he wanted to have us talk about. Kind of leads into that. What right now you've got Chicago and Arizona both holding top picks. Chicago holding the number 1 pick right now. Arizona, I think, is still in the top 5 because they own their own pick, and then they have a pick from Houston. Do they draft quarterbacks?
Who? Chicago and
Arizona.
They have to. I mean, if you're holding the top, the top 3 picks, if you will, you have to take a quarterback. I mean, the interesting thing that would, I guess, throw a big wrench in this is if Kyler Murray plays really well at the end of the year, you're going to end up with a decision of, do you keep Kyler or you move on from Kyler? I think they move on from Kyler, but like, but here's the thing is, like, if you're moving on from Kyler, obviously you would have to make a decision in free agency. Like, I get that, because free agency, like, it either signals you're going to take a quarterback or you're not going to take a quarterback at all. And when I say, like, you might take a quarterback, you go sign a Gardner Minshew or something, and
right.
and that signals like, oh, okay, they might actually go take a quarterback. Andy Dalton, like, they signed an Andy Dalton. Oh, okay, they're going to go probably end up taking a quarterback. That's exactly what Carolina did. Like, I mean, It's what Carolina did. It's what Indianapolis did. So, I mean, like, it's dependent upon like what happens. And so it's like, but if they don't, and they screw themselves exactly the way the New York Jets have, which is throw all their eggs into one basket and draft Sam Darnold, they draft Zach Wilson, and they don't even do a lick about it in terms of building it around him. Like, I mean, that's their own fault, but I mean, kudos to throwing your chips into the table and, you know, wanting the quarterback that you wanted, but are you going to build around him, or are you just going to just have him build a fort that he can't get out of?
Right. Now, if Kyler plays well, they'll get out of that top 5. And then I think that's probably based on his contract and everything. That's probably he's going to be with the Cardinals next year, because they'll use those 2 top picks to help build talent. But Chicago, they're probably going to end up with 1, because the Panthers are. The way the Panthers have been playing, I don't know if I see them winning another game.
Yeah,
they could, but I think it would be pretty shocking.
Chicago could end up with 2 picks. And I think logically, like the first 2 picks, I should say, like the first 2 picks. And logically, if you're going to do that, either you take a tackle, like you take a tackle to, you know, protect your investment, which should be Caleb Williams probably, you know, Caleb Williams or Drake May, like, you know, who you draft, you can either take the bookend or you pair DJ Moore with Marvin Harrison Jr. If you do that, like, you've clearly got your wide receiver 1, maybe wide receiver 1B too with DJ Moore, because he's a stud. I mean, so there's multiple ways they can certainly go, and obviously the draft process is a crapshoot, and there's going to be a lot of smoke screens, a lot of stuff that happens because of that. And so, I mean, who knows? I mean, typically what you hear in the first initial process is kind of the way that they go sometimes. But you kind of have to read the tea leaves, though. You have to read the tea leaves exactly of like what it is that they actually want to do. And like if they're spending X amount of time with these players, you know, and you find it that they're actually spending far more time with Ola Fashanu and Marvin Harrison Jr., then you pretty clearly know that, okay, these 2 guys are probably going to end up being one of their selections if they are picks 1 and 2. And of course, you know, Drake May and Caleb Williams.
Right. There's no way Chicago doesn't draft a quarterback.
No
way.
Yeah.
Because at this point, you're still bad. Do you want to pay Justin Fields big money?
No.
When you haven't seen him win games?
You
know? So, which unfortunately, I think Justin did some good things at the beginning of this season that made you go, you know, there could be something there. You know, not a lot of talent on the offense. Offensive coordinator is not very good. So there's some things there. Caleb loves the idea. Would you trade for Justin Fields?
I think it's a fascinating idea because, like, it's the argument we've made with Trey Lance, right? I mean, you know, because I think that the reason why it's such a fascinating idea is you would have to get a pulse from all the other general managers across the league, because you would have to figure out, okay, is Justin Fields going to end up being an NFL starter on a football team? If he is, then you would kind of maybe take a pass on him because you know that he's going to end up being a starter for some team, whether that's Arizona, right? Like maybe they go to Arizona, or maybe he goes to Atlanta, right? Like maybe he goes to Atlanta, which would be fun.
That's a great idea.
But like you would have to get a pulse from the general managers to understand, like, oh, is he going to end up being a starter, or do some teams view him still as a little bit of a project, but willing to take a chance on? And in that vein, if that is true, and everything that has succumbed to the Russell Wilson deal, that's a different avenue to let's restructure Russ. Like, let's restructure Russ, but let's bring in Justin Fields. And of course, we all know that there's the Taysom Hill element with Justin Fields. It's like, oh, well, you know, we'll play him, you know, in different situations, play him in different spots, or, you know, so on and so forth. But My only rebuttal to that, and again, I've been blowing up the Trey Lance drum, when that was an option, or even, now the Justin Fields stuff is he's never played tight end before. He's never played running back before. So it's like, like you're asking him to play a new position, which, I mean, he's been a quarterback his entire life. So you're basically asking him to play a whole new position and play a whole new position like after the NFL Combine and after he's been in the NFL for like 4 years. So it's like, you would almost be behind the curveball at that point. So it's a fascinating idea, but like I don't know.
Taysom Hill's, pretty much a linebacker playing quarterback. He's a big guy. That's why they're able to just slam him up in there whenever they want. And he's just not as big a threat throw. He can throw a little bit, but he's not like Justin Fields is a better thrower of the football than Taysom Hill. I think that's a pretty easy comment to make.
Yeah.
But the only thing that makes it weird is the money, because Justin Fields is in his 3rd year. He was a first-round pick. You got the 4th year with the 5th-year option. That's a good amount of money that you'd be paying Russ.
I know. So he would almost have to restructure both contracts.
You'd have to try to restructure both if you could make that happen.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they can make that happen, but it's an interesting thing. If Sean Payton can get Teddy Bridgewater to play well and win games, and Jameis Winston, and even get Taysom Hill to win some games at quarterback, he probably could do some things with Justin Fields. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption. Let's see. Was there anything else on Caleb's? Oh, Caleb wanted to see what our thoughts were on. He pulled a top 10. I occasionally listen to Colin Cowherd just to hear his takes. Rich Eisen is my favorite. I like the Rich Eisen show. That's usually the one that entertains me the most. But he does his weekly top 10, and I don't know if I agree with his top 10 here. He's got Kansas City, San Francisco, Philly, Baltimore, Cincinnati, Detroit, Dallas, Cleveland, Seahawks, and the Jaguars. That's his top 10 teams.
Okay.
Right now. The biggest issue I have, Philly should be number 1.
Okay.
They lost a close game to the Jets. It's the only game they've lost. They've beat everybody else they've played.
Okay.
The Chiefs have lost twice. They barely beat the Jags. And really, if the Broncos weren't so bad on offense the first time they beat the Broncos, they may have lost that game too. And we scored 19 points.
Right.
So can we say they're really the best team?
Probably top 5.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't kick them out of the top 5. They're 7-2, and their defense is like awesome. It's like the first year that you can say, like, if that defense was like 2-3 years ago defense, they'd probably 3-5. Like they're not as good. This defense is what's keeping them relevant, keeping them winning games.
Right.
So, who do you think would be number 1? Who's number 1 in your book?
I probably would go Philly. Number 2. Number 2. I might actually go Baltimore, even with the loss with Cleveland. I might actually go to Baltimore. Number 3.
So I like that. Because they lost a division game. Division games are weird. I mean, that's how division games are. They're always weird. Will you lose a division game to a rival that you probably shouldn't lose? Yeah, it'll probably happen. But they also beat the crap out of 2 teams in the top 10 because they smacked the Seahawks and the Lions. Mm-hmm. So I like that. Baltimore number 2.
Baltimore number 2. I probably would go Chiefs 3. Chiefs 3. And then let's see. Then I might go. This one's a fascinating one. But I might go Dallas at 4. Dallas is
over the Niners, over the Lions.
Oh, sorry. No, Niners. I'll go Niners at 4. And then I'll go. So yeah, Niners, and then I'll go Niners, and then I'll go Bengals. And then from the Bengals, I'll go Lions. No, Bengals, Cowboys, then Lions.
Oh, you put the Lions behind the Bengals and the Cowboys?
I love the Lions. I love the Lions. I just think that it's more about what can they do. They won the big game against the Chargers, but was it a big game? They obviously beat Kansas City. It's not that I don't hate the Lions. It's just as it's progressing, can they be that team? They're obviously a top 10 team. So where are they? 7?
So Coward's got them 6, but you're putting them at 7.
So
because you put the Bengals and the Cowboys ahead of them.
Yeah. Oh man.
So you've got Browns, Seahawks, and Jags are the last teams on there. I don't even know if I'd have the Jags on there myself.
Yeah. I don't even know if I would even go Jags on that one either. I wouldn't even go, okay. I'll go Miami.
Oh, that's okay. That's the team. I was like, there's got to be a team I'm forgetting here because I don't like the Jags on this top 10 at all.
Because I'll go Miami, and Miami's 8, right?
No, Miami's not on the list.
No, I mean mine.
Yes, they'd be 8 on your list. Yeah.
And then
this one's tough.
Do I bite the bullet? And I think at 9, I'll say Buffalo, just for the sake of I still think they're at least a tough team.
Okay.
And
then
10 is going to surprise. 10 is going to surprise some people. Houston
over Cleveland, Houston over Seattle, Houston over Jacksonville.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hate it.
Because I think Houston actually has a legit chance to win that division.
Jacksonville's crazy. I've not been on the Trevor Lawrence hype train. I never have.
I love Trevor Lawrence though, but the way that Houston's playing though, like they're playing really good football. Even at
I'm not a T-Law fan, and I'm surprised on how they've just literally had Calvin Ridley disappear. Like he might as well be suspended again because he's doesn't seem to be out there. It's crazy. After he had that great week 1, and he's been pretty much non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Who's the and then that leads us to the last topic, which is the one I wanted to keep last. MVP.
Might as well lead it off with the topic of the day, right? So we just finished with Houston on my top 10. The reason why they're in the top 10 is because they actually have a legit MVP candidate in his first year. Like CJ Stroud is doing things that are, it's just unheard of. Like his touchdown interception ratio alone, is absurd. The way he's able to process the information, from the line of scrimmage, the way that he is as a pocket passer, like he is he is playing at almost like an anomaly. Like you just didn't see it.
Got to give the O-line credit, man. That O-line is giving him time to throw, clean pockets, and he's not afraid to chuck it down the field, man. And it makes no sense. Is Noah Brown awesome? He's okay. Is Nico Collins great? He's okay.
I think Nico Collins is a really solid receiver, but I think that the point of all of it is to the Sean Payton idea. It's the coaching point. There is a coaching success happening in Houston, and they really surprised all of us with that trade on draft day. But Ryans and Caserio, the entire front office of Houston, they really did the unthinkable and wanted to make this their football team right from the get-go under D'Amico, and they made a shocking trade of getting Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. And we know that true pillars of a football team are a pass rusher, a quarterback, and a top tackle. They have two of those three, right?
They have three.
Well, I was just saying, like, they have two of those three
they drafted two of the three. Yeah.
Like,
and then they got Tunsil.
And then they had Tunsil. Exactly. So, like, the foundation was getting started by D'Amico. And then you get Stroud voicing his opinion for drafting Tank Dell. And Tank Dell is as deserving for some rookie. He won't get it, but, like, as some of the rookie of the year hype, because he's electric. I mean, you saw exactly the reason why myself and others, wanted a guy like that, because he was explosive. You look past his height and his size. You look at his explosiveness. You look at him as a player. He is a productive wideout coming out of college. And, like, that absolutely will translate to the next level. And it's clear that CJ Stroud falls in love with that type of player. And he is really helping, take that offense, taking that team to a whole other level. And, like, it is impressive. It is truly, truly impressive to see what Stroud has been able to do with that offense. And, kudos to not just Stroud, but D'Amico Ryans to even pull a guy like Bob Slowick to coach that team as an offensive coordinator. So Slowick is going to be a really hot name, in this head coaching cycle. I don't know if he'll go. He could pull a Brian Johnson from what Detroit did. Maybe Brian Johnson, set an example for, some young offensive coordinators that, hey, if you really got something special, why leave? Obviously, a head coach is a promotion, but why leave when you already got something special? So,
I think there's something to be said for waiting for the right job too, right?
Yeah,
because if you go to, there's certain teams, like, maybe you want to take, like, you're getting your first head coaching job is a big deal, but do you really want to go coach, the Jets or certain teams that have not done great?
Yeah,
they don't have great organization.
Not saying Jets will fire Sala. I doubt they would, but I mean, like, would you want to go to there? I would rather go to a stable organization. I mean, like, we give Jim Irsay a lot of crap, but I mean, like, Shane Steichen is actually in an ideal situation, at least for the future, with a guy like Anthony Richardson, knowing the fact that he's going to be building an offense around him. So,
all right, good stuff, man.
But what
I think CJ is on the list right now as it stands. CJ Stroud is absolutely in that top three. I think Lamar is in the top three. And then and the numbers aren't quite what they were last year at the moment, but I still got Jalen Hurts in my top three for MVP right now.
And I have some wild cards. They don't get as much hype and popularity. One is obviously I hate the guy, and that would be Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill at least deserves some MVP consideration. The way that he's already producing is already above 1,000 yards. It's an absurd number. The way that he's been able to produce such just a crazy clip. It's almost like the Cooper Kupp here, right? I mean, like, the guy is just producing. I mean, I absolutely despise the guy, but as a football player, he is one of the most electric wide receivers we have ever seen. He's frankly, from a prolonged career, he's what Deshaun Jackson should have been from a prolonged career perspective. And CeeDee Lamb. I mean, CeeDee Lamb is projected to get like almost 1,800 yards, which to his credit is also another MVP candidate in Dak Prescott. So, I mean, like, Dak Prescott is flying under the radar in terms of like being a –
Well, Dak is doing what Dak has done in previous seasons. He's feasting on bad teams. When they play bad teams, his numbers are through the roof.
Still, though, I mean, you've got to –
when he plays good teams, they're not as good.
But I mean, you still have to give him his flowers and put him in the standings, and he may not get it. But like he's playing like an MVP candidate, and the offense in general is producing numbers now without Kellen Moore, which I mean, kudos to Schottenheimer and what he's been able to cook in his lab, if you will. But I just think that just overall, like you have to give Prescott his due. And obviously, the Bengals had a disappointing loss, and they're going to have a big game this Thursday night. So we're finally going to have a big. It's going to have a. But depending on what happens after this game, so we said Lamar's an MVP, and I think he's rightfully an MVP candidate. However, Joe Burrow is another one of those players that is depending on what happens on Thursday. I mean, we're already starting to see a little bit of a trend where Burrow is back to playing like Burrow, but like. If Burrow can beat Lamar and play at roughly that exact same clip that we had seen the last few weeks where it seems like he is fully healthy now, he could replace Lamar on the MVP list and become an MVP candidate, possibly on this list. So there are definitely some fun choices. And I think that another interesting one could even be Jared Goff. Jared Goff, obviously, I joke with him, but like I call him the Colorado Rockies quarterback because his home road splits are insane. In terms
he
of
does like playing in that dome.
He does like playing in the dome. But you also have to give him some recognition. I mean, with what the Lions have been able to put forth on their map, I mean, Jared Goff is also deserving to be in that MVP conversation.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that statement. As we know, the MVP usually goes to, the quarterback on a winning team. So these your team's got to be winning. You got to make the playoffs to get there. Mm-hmm. It's funny that we're not mentioning Mahomes at this point, but I think the numbers bear out.
But I also think it's a given he'll be in that list. You just don't want to say it.
He will. Because he's the face of the NFL.
Yeah.
He's typically going to be on that list. But to me, like, if Jalen Hurts doesn't get hurt for like the last 2 weeks, a couple weeks before the end of the season, he had those 2 weeks off. The numbers he was putting up and what he was doing, he would have had like 15 rushing touchdowns and 35, 40 passing touchdowns. It would have been tough for anybody to beat that. But him not playing those 2 weeks kind of put Mahomes back at the top of it, and he just kind of finished it off with some. He played great down the stretch.
Well, we know that if you're actually looking at it from our eyes, right? Our eyes is that Jalen Hurts actually outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl. Like he outplayed Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So
that's why defense matters, man. KC's defense came up with plays when they had to. So
even if they bended the rules a little bit, on that one penalty.
I mean, that it all comes down to that the game changer was the Nick Bolton fumble return. Like that changed the game. If that doesn't happen, Philly probably scores on that drive too, and that penalty doesn't even come into play. But that's defense. I know Caleb hates it. Defense does win championship.
Yeah,
he hates that saying. So, all right, Cam, great having you on again. I probably should say thank you to my buddy Jared. He gave me a bottle of this Granddad 114. I don't know if you drink whiskey, Cam.
I do.
Okay, so I don't know if you've had Old Granddad.
I have not.
Old Granddad, the normal bottle. It's bonded. It's called bonded. I'm not somebody educated me on what that meant at one point, but I don't remember right now.
Mhm.
$25 for the bottle. Awesome. It's a very good $25 for 100 proof whiskey. Really
Okay.
good. This is a special one because it's 114. It's a little bit stronger than the 100, but it is pretty damn good. Thank you, my man, Jared. I appreciate you supporting me. He just happened to be like, hey, you like old granddad? Here, take this bottle. He like buys, sells, and trades whiskey. It's kind of like his hobby.
Yeah.
So had it kind of laying around. Final thoughts from you, my man.
Just overall, was great to, talk shop. I mean, it's been a little bit since I've been on, sports, nonsense and whiskey. And, so I it obviously is nice, talking about the Denver Broncos, but of course it's, especially on a winning streak, but any chance you got to talk about something completely different,
Right.
I'm definitely a huge proponent of it. So, especially, given the fact that, when the Broncos have sucked as much as they have, you need to talk about something different. So, but
that's when you talk about the Nuggets and the Avs and
right, exactly,
any other, the other good teams. I will say, I don't know, since it's been a little while since we've had you, I guess I should mention, I have a rooting interest in the top teams of the NFL, because I'm going to the Super Bowl.
Nice.
So,
congratulations, man.
I'm excited to see. I'm hopefully anybody but the Chiefs will make it to the Super Bowl. As long as Travis Kelce's dating Taylor Swift, though, I think the Chiefs are going back. I think the NFL is going to make that happen.
You never know. Well, my Super Bowl is that I will be going to the BMW Championship next year in Castle Pines, and I will actually So I will be a volunteer over at the BMW Championship. So that's going to be in my Super Bowl next year.
That's pretty awesome. When's that? When do they play that?
August. I want to say it's like August 19th to as far as the stretch, like getting ready, and just the overall dates. Like it's not like a 4-day stretch, right? Because that's the event. But they basically stretch it out, so it's August 19th to I think August 25th, and it's at obviously.
What are you going to be doing?
Don't know. It's kind of TBD at this point. But hey, when you're a volunteer, you just sign up for everything. Yeah, it's almost like you're an intern. You're just like, I'm just happy to be. It's basically the Marshawn Lynch logic. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
If you can be behind the scenes or something like that, I'm sure it gives you access to possibly meeting some of the golfers and learning some things. I know you like to golf.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's pretty good. That's a pretty cool thing, man. Maybe make some connections and maybe give you a chance to get to some other ones.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it was funny. I mean, like obviously, it was something that we knew that the BMW Championship was going to be at the Castle Pines course. And we know that we live in Castle Rock. And so it's just like, let's just sign up and see what happens. And so they do this priority interest form. And, we signed it a while back. And we finally got the email that was like, hey, congratulations, you were chosen. And so we went through with it. And yeah, it's at least what's kind of nice. And what you talked about is like, there are some perks and, you can certainly enjoy it, but, having the ability to network and I guess, have that full cred to be there for the entire event, if you will, is going to be something we'll be soaking in for sure.
That's awesome. Who else? Is somebody, another friend or family member coming with you?
It would be Moose River Hummer, as apparently we found out tonight on the 5280 podcast. So that would be my dad.
That's a great name. That's a great name.
It's actually my dad's fantasy name. So like everything stays the same, with him. So yeah. So he's going to go with me. And funny enough, I found out that actually one of my really close friends also signed up and got the volunteership with Castle Pines. So it's not just going to be me and my dad, but it's going to be my friend and his dad that's also going to the BMW Championship. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, that's going to be a great time. I'm sure you guys will have some fun after, you guys do all your stuff for the day.
Right.
You get to relax and hang out together. That's going to be super cool.
Yes, it'll be a lot of fun.
Right on, Cam.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, as we always say, as Caleb says, take time, tell your loved ones you miss them, you love them, check in on them if you haven't in a while. It's important. Holidays are coming up. It's a stressful time of year. Reach out to some folks that you've been thinking about. Just let them know that you're thinking of them, and put out some positivity in the world. Even when it's not the holidays, put out positivity in the world.
Anything that the world needs, the most important thing we can breathe is love. I mean, that's the most important thing, is loving others and healing the world, every chance we get in terms of loving others. So yeah, spread love. Let's heal the world together, and, go Broncos.
Go Broncos. I love it. God, I love hearing that. We're out.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Simcoe's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flight miles. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle. Wait a minute. Work hard for the car, so that's why it's all tinted. Wait a minute. Had a real late night, woke up with my...
Of course I put money on Michael Porter